With a heavy sigh, the young man raised his sword, realizing that the trials were far from over. People were walking slowly along the wide road, and on both sides of it towered giant statues in long robes with hoods thrown over them, in whose hands rested various artifacts. Revel, slightly turning his head, lingered his gaze on the monumental figure holding a huge sword. In this world, when a child turned 12, he was sent to the temple, where the greatest priest, who could hear the voice of the deity, proclaimed his gift. In a monotonous tone, a talent was announced, which was considered a sign of fate, pointing the way to the fulfillment of destiny. Approaching the elegantly dressed woman one by one, the children held their breath as she voiced their gift. For some, it was the fate of a swordsman. One by one, the children learned their purpose, and most of them seemed to have talents related to martial arts. Once upon a time, the deity considered humans too weak, and therefore most often rewarded them with gifts for fighting demons. Now, however, monsters did not pose the same threat, and abilities that served the development of civilization were becoming increasingly valuable. Revel, surprisingly, knew all about this in advance. It seemed incredibly impressive. The young man chuckled, explaining that he only knew what he had managed to learn and did not consider himself a smart guy at all. But to everyone else, he still looked special. When it was Anna's turn, standing right in front of Revel, her name was called out by the attendant, and the girl reacted too excitedly. She was asked to identify herself, and then came something she couldn't immediately believe. Her gift was the title of Dragon Knight. This news shocked everyone. Such a rare and powerful talent was extremely rare. On the surface, Anna was just a sweet girl. The priest said that he had to talk to her personally and asked her to follow him through the back door, where the temple guards were waiting. When it came to Revel's turn, his gift turned out to be Diligence, an ability that meant nothing more than the need to always try his best. Hearing this, the children burst out laughing. No one had ever encountered such a vague and incomprehensible gift before. The unfortunate boy was immediately teased as a loser, spat in his direction, and boasted of his own abilities. Carlo, one of the boys, proudly showed off his title of Master Swordsman, although it was inferior in importance to the Dragon Knight, but still considered exceptional. For Carlo, this meant that God himself had chosen him for the path of knighthood. Not him, the son of a skilled warrior, but himself. And until that day, he and Revel had been equal in strength, but now everything had changed. While the others were making noise, someone noticed that Revel had quietly left, trying to catch up with Anna. He was tormented by curiosity about what exactly she had talked about with the priest. But the girl only smiled mysteriously and noted that she wanted something tasty. Having reached Revel's house, he offered to cook something himself, having first asked her mother's permission. The woman jokingly asked him to cook for her, after which the guy enthusiastically got down to business. Soon he served fragrant pancakes, which Anna ate with such appetite that she almost swallowed them whole. Revel advised her to eat more slowly, but she suddenly admitted that she would have to say goodbye to this taste. The reason was her imminent departure to the Academy of Heroes, the best educational institution in the Kingdom of Theoria, where they were currently living. This academy gathered the possessors of the greatest gifts and raised future defenders of the kingdom. At the ceremony in the main temple with the high priest, the guards were not there for nothing. Their task was to prevent the escape of children with exceptional talents, like Anna. Revel was surprised and asked, because she seemed not to like fighting. The girl replied that she simply had no choice, because the gift had been given to her from above. Then, catching herself, she apologized for her strange words, noting that she should be proud of her gift. But time was running out, and she thanked Revel for the treat. He didn't even have time to stop her, as she had already disappeared, accidentally catching a man in the passage who was probably his father. He frowned and asked what had happened to Anna-chan. A little later, the man sat down to have a snack and listened to his son's story. He assumed that the girl was upset about receiving a shameful gift, but to his surprise he learned that she turned out to be the hero of the kingdom, and this only increased his bewilderment about his own son's strange and, at first glance, useless talent. The boy flushed with indignation, but at that moment his mother entered the room and noticed that Revel's talent for diligence perfectly reflected his character. For her, this was not just good, it was wonderful. He always worked with special zeal, just to see Anna smile, so he cooked his pancakes so that it was impossible to tear yourself away from them. Revel did not immediately believe his mother's words. Did she really think that? The world of talent seemed like a complete mystery to him. Once, in their village, after the decline of the cattle yard, a woman received the gift of a baker, and decided that by opening her own bakery in the capital, she could achieve great success, and she would always be well fed. Her father only laughed at her words, and then said that he would now be late, because they had to prepare for a fight before God, where they would show duels of gifted children. The high priest himself was supposed to attend this event, so the head cook ordered Revel to approach the work with special care. But the young man silently rose from the table and left, without even answering his mother's call. The woman covered her mouth with her hand, wondering what was going on in her son's thoughts. Only two words were spinning in her head: the talent of diligence and high priests. For Revel, all this became a challenge. He realized that he had to prove to everyone that even such a gift as zeal is worthy of a place in the Academy of Heroes. There was very little time left before the battle before the god, and he was tormented by the question of how to manage to do the impossible. Talents were a mystery to him, and he did not want to use them as a tool to solve personal problems. But there was no way out. Now what he needed most was to learn more about the very essence of diligence. Power beyond human limits could only be obtained in two ways: through many real battles and exhausting searches, or from birth along with the gift of wisdom. Wisdom was like a message from above. This gift granted the owner a huge amount of knowledge, but was of little help in finding hidden information. When it was necessary to understand something specific, it was quite useful, but still remained just a source of information. Revel never dreamed of possessing such a power. First, he wanted to understand what diligence was. Any persistence would eventually yield results, but unlike other gifts, there was no direct reward for the work. The lack of reward for his efforts seemed unfair to him. He wondered what those with diligence had done in the past, and hoped that his path would bring something good. Magic was, in fact, easy to obtain if one knew all about it through wisdom. But he had too little magic to use it freely. Yet there was a way to increase it, even if talent did not allow for it: to imagine the power within oneself and release it. If he could sense the magical energy flowing through his body, it could raise the upper limit of his capabilities, but his head was splitting with pain. Magical exhaustion could bring even an adult to tears. Usually, it was experienced only a few times, because without a combat gift, it was almost impossible to use magic. But he was ready to endure the pain in order to try. Time passed, and Revel didn't know how many hours had passed. He lost count of how many times he had exhausted and refilled his magic. It seemed like his strength was running out, and death could strike at any moment. But still, he hadn't cast a single spell. Suddenly, he felt a new skill appear in his consciousness: super magic recovery. This amazed him. Now the speed of returning magical powers increased several times. The condition for receiving it was a 10-fold restoration of magic in a row from the moment of complete exhaustion. Revel had already had to open various skills thanks to wisdom, but he had never seen anything like this. Perhaps this was because the skill was earned rather than innate. This meant that there must be other similar skills. For example, muscle strength enhancement temporarily increased stamina and physical strength. To obtain it, one had to exhaust one's magical reserves, then perform 100 crunches, 100 push-ups, and 100 squats. The record said that the conditions varied from person to person, so there must be unique challenges for Revel. Could this be the true essence of diligence? It turns out that in the understanding of the deity, persistently gathering strength, as if groping in the dark, is the true meaning of this gift. Moreover, for warriors with combat talents, the requirements were several times less. They only needed to do it 10 times. But he already had super magic recovery, so he can go further. Revel fulfilled the conditions and obtained the enhancement skills. Many events happened during the day, and in the end, he also mastered magic manipulation and body enhancement. The condition for obtaining body enhancement was a combination of muscle strength enhancement skills and magical manipulation. Revel wondered if he could use wisdom to find the conditions for obtaining certain skills, and thereby gain powerful abilities faster. Magic manipulation seemed extremely versatile to him, so he decided to look for similar abilities. His father, noticing this, noted that his son had been acting strangely since yesterday. The man offered to talk, and the young man choked on his words. He realized that if he could learn and master this skill, he could attract the attention of the high priest. Anna simply had to wait for him. After a while, everyone gathered in the arena, where the master swordsman easily won victory after victory. He clearly had no intention of leaving the site, wanting to demonstrate his strength to everyone. But the high priest asked a question. He was interested in where the Dragon Knight was. He was told that she was not feeling well. The spectators noticed that Carlo had become much stronger, and this caused admiration. No one dared to go against him, but then Ravel appeared. The young man was fully prepared for the fight and felt no fear. Carlo grinned and asked if he was crazy, since with the talent of diligence given to him by God, he would hardly be able to win. Silence. One of the priests tried to shout that only those with martial gifts fight before God, but he was quickly silenced. In the end, Carlo agreed to fulfill his opponent's wish, because he had been waiting for this moment for too long. Ravel was surprised, but in response he received only insults. Arrogance was unacceptable. The duel began even before the official signal. Both of them no longer heard anyone around them. The question arose as to what someone else would have done in his place. Carlo demanded that Ravel admit defeat, but he stubbornly refused. The fight was hard and fast. The difference in talent was felt in everything. Even having strengthened his body, Ravel could not surpass Carlo's attacks. Carlo shouted at him not to just stand there, even if he was a dud. Taking punches without trying to fight back was anything but a fight. The crowd cheered for Carlo, adding to the intensity of the fight. Once, the father was surprised why Ravel needed to see how he wielded a sword. The son explained that it was extremely important and asked not to be distracted by him, but just to slow down the movements so that he could see everything. The man agreed and demonstrated the technique slowly. Thus, he was able to fulfill the conditions for obtaining the skill imitation. To open it, it was necessary to understand all the movements of a person with the help of improved vision while trying to master it. The skill allowed him to reproduce the techniques of any fighter, although the copying itself consumed magical energy. Now Ravel wielded a sword like his father, and it was a complete surprise. He won, which stunned everyone, because no one expected such a thing from a simple youth. Afterwards, he approached the priest and asked to be admitted to the Hero Academy. He reminded him that he had defeated a master swordsman without taking a single blow, and asked if that was not proof of his right to enter. The high priest replied that this was impossible. The Theory Hero Academy is a sacred place associated with the prestige of a deity, and its students' talents must be impeccable. Ravel's gift, he said, was not suitable for such a level. The young man nodded, apologized for his insistence, and left the room. The servants carefully asked the priest if he was sure of his decision, to which he merely replied that such were the rules. But these rules were frankly unfair. If you look at the situation through Ravel's eyes, then even for a deity, his talent remained a mystery. After some time, Ravel came to Anna's house and asked where she was. Her mother replied that her daughter had locked herself in her room because she was leaving for the academy the following day. The young man asked to call her, and soon Anna, who was sitting on the floor, agreed to talk. She admitted that she had heard of his victory over Carlo and considered him to be truly strong. Despite the great gifts she had received, she still felt fear of battles and was afraid of being wounded herself. Anna said that she would like to stay in the village and live a quiet, peaceful life next to him. Revel, standing behind the door, said that there are 2 levels of training in the Hero Academy. The minor class consists of people with outstanding talents, and the major class consists of those who are considered exceptions. If the academy confirms the candidate, then even with an unusual gift, it can be accepted. Anna often repeated that he was special. Ravel was sure that in 3 years he would be strong enough to protect the Dragon Knight and enter the academy. The girl, unable to hold back her tears, said that then he would have no free time, even if he dreamed of a peaceful life. But he firmly replied that he still wanted to be by her side. Anna admitted that she had always been a crybaby, and he always came to calm her down. The young man responded by reminding her that she always rejoiced when he cooked her delicious treats. After a short pause, she admitted that she liked him, which greatly embarrassed him. He was about to say something, but the girl covered his mouth with her hand and promised that she would hear his answer only in 3 years, when they met at the academy. Until then, she was going to try to become the best version of herself. Behind his back, he heard words about how he was just a child, and knowing this sometimes caused fear. Ravel realized that he had fallen in love with her smile a long time ago, and now they stood opposite each other, not daring to break the awkward silence. Anna suggested making a promise to each other. Even if she is not the strongest, she will always smile next to him. They sealed the oath with their little fingers, and Revel swore that he would become so powerful that even the Dragon Knight would not have to fight. His diligence would live for that smile until he became the strongest man in the world. His father, Aiden, taught at the dojo, but would only show up briefly, saying a few words, before disappearing and spending time in unknown locations. The substitute mentors did not express dissatisfaction with his carelessness, because they knew what true power he was hiding. Among the skills he had once mastered was Demonization. At that time, Anna, holding an umbrella over herself, was walking in the pouring rain. Everyone around her wished her success, because she was considered the most talented in their village. Meanwhile, Aiden asked his son if he was really okay and if he wanted to see Anna off. While training, Ravel replied that he did not intend to waste a single second. The father realized that he was seriously aiming to enter the academy, where his beloved had already gone. At the same time, the man admitted that he had previously considered his son a child. When asked if everything was okay, he answered in the affirmative, but assumed that the idea, although good, was unlikely to be crowned with success. The power of the highest talent is too great, and even if he impresses the priest with his imitation of movements, he will still soon be expelled. Revel was surprised that his father knew about his ability. He explained that he did not want to tell him earlier, because tricks will not lead to the goal. He wanted his son to experience everything on his own, and remember that he must strive for the top on his own. Ravel asked what exactly his father was going to teach him, since he hadn't even brought a bamboo sword. But Aiden replied that their training would be completely different from what they did at school. He stated that he intended to help his son master the skill of demonization. The man lit a fire, illuminating the darkness, and explained that a demonic flame was burning before them. First, Revel had to concentrate, enter into meditation, and only then would he be able to gain the skill of demonization. He said that there is another world, different from their reality. The world of demons. People are able to obtain power equal to demons, and even improve their physical abilities to unimaginable levels. However, even with the help of wisdom, it is impossible to find a word about demonization. It is hidden, like a secret that should not be in the public domains. Ravel did not believe that such a powerful skill could be mastered. He asked why his father did not reveal it, and his father admitted that he despised such knowledge. The man explained that if this discovery had become widespread, thousands would have died. Ravel fell to his knees, gasping for air, coughing and choking on saliva. His father calmly explained that the demonic flames feed on magical elements from the air and the life energy of the people around them. Under its influence, the body becomes weaker. The boy screamed in pain, and the flame burned only half-powered. His father strengthened it, and now it was sucking magical energy from his son's body, bringing him to exhaustion. Researchers of monsters from the demon world gave them the name demons, and this is how they entered the myths of ancient kingdoms. According to these tales, demons dwell in a place similar to hell and torture the souls of criminals. If Ravel wishes to surpass them, he must go through his own hell. Lying on the floor, he could barely breathe, knowing that this was only the beginning. It felt like he was deep underwater and couldn't breathe. Even the super magic recovery skill couldn't save him due to the lack of magic elements around him. Cycles of exhaustion and recovery followed one after another, causing unbearable pain. Father reminded that Ravel had defeated Carlo, the strongest swordsman, but that was not enough. He had to become even more powerful. The power of fighting talent must be brought to the limit to be able to protect the Dragon Knight. The man chuckled, deciding that his son seemed to be close to being ready. However, he did not believe that he would cope in one day, and suggested leaving the room for now. Looking at his father's retreating figure, Ravel forced the words out with difficulty. He was not going to give up, and was sure that he would find a way out. If he applied wisdom, the solution would definitely open up. But wisdom only provides information on a specific request. There must still be a way to overcome the demonic flames using the life energy of people and the power around them. He was struck by his father's calm at that moment. Revel himself was trembling. His consciousness was fading. And in the silence, the crackling of the flames and the patter of the rain on the roof only grew louder. Suddenly he remembered how he had once walked with Anna in the rain. The girl was upset because she had dreamed of playing with a paper airplane. Then he promised that he would use his wisdom to make one, and they could have fun at home. Anna, having received the little plane, immediately unfolded it, which left Revel genuinely perplexed. Soon Anna folded a new, even more elegant airplane, and noticed that if circumstances change, a different approach must be taken. She invited Revel to launch it together, and he noted that she was only able to find solutions through games. The girl, however, sheepishly said that he was very kind. Anna added that the word only should be removed from her words and did not believe that the plane could sink. It was this memory that prompted Revel that he should use a different method now. If it was impossible to breathe ordinary air, then he should use the magical power to breathe. Like the magical manipulation skill he had gained while training to fight before the god, he had to hold on until the end. At the same time, he remembered that he could have obtained the skill, circulation of magical power, a long time ago. But in pursuit of imitation, he completely forgot about its existence. With this skill, magical energy continuously moves through the body, enhancing physical performance and reducing the consumption of magical power. After receiving the skill, the mage's overall energy volume increases. The activation condition is to reproduce the full circulation of power throughout the body using magical manipulation. This gives an increase in magical power, but not health. If this works, he will be able to breathe even under such conditions, distributing a small amount of energy from the super magic recovery to each part of the body. He soon mastered the circulation of magical power and was delighted with his success. But he understood that this was not enough. It was still impossible to go deep into meditation. However, even with the lack of air, he could use the same method to circulate magic. Circulation was the real purpose of this training, a test of how much he could rely on his instincts. He could already feel the blood flowing and the nerves working, strengthening his control over his body. Now all Revel could do was keep his cool. Gradually, he was able to completely pull himself together. In hell, Sei's screams are heard, Sei's tears are flowing, and the demons just laugh. He no longer knew how long this training lasted, but when it was all over, the sky was clear and the rain had stopped. That's how he got the demonization skill. His father gave him a strong blade, telling him to temper it with experience in real battles in nature, where he could become even stronger. The sword was almost indestructible, and it had to be carefully looked after. Before leaving, Revel apologized to his mother for such a sudden decision, but she said with a warm smile that everything was fine. The young man threw his sword over his back and set off with a confident step. Aiden, watching his son leave, only hoped that everything would be all right with him. After all, his gift was not intended for military exploits. It had been a long time since he had last visited the temple to prepare for the fight before the god. Despite the small size of the village, the temple stood imposingly. All the shrines where talents were proclaimed looked equally majestic, and each time Aiden looked at them, he realized how much people depended on their power. He had once traveled the world himself, and knew a few who worked harder than their gift dictated. His son was one of them. Aiden had initially scoffed at the talent of zeal, but it usually took about 2 years to master demonization. Perhaps not everyone is given the gift of carrying unlimited power within themselves. The thought that his son was now out of his sight filled his heart with heaviness. The mother couldn't hold back her tears as she saw Revel off. The man hugged his wife and assured her that everything would be fine. Now his son would meet many people, learn the unknown, and perhaps surpass him. With the gift of diligence, Revel set out on his journey to become the strongest in the world. Meanwhile, in the distance, a young girl was attacked by a ferocious monster who chased her with all his might. Revel appeared at the most critical moment and saved the fugitive. She was amazed. The guy killed the orc with one blow. Could this really be a dream? As he was about to continue his journey, Revel was stopped by a girl who noticed that his clothes were soaked in dirt and blood. He admitted that he had not met anyone for several days and did not pay attention to it. She said that with such clothes, the journey would be unbearable. The girl deftly pulled off his worn cape and handed him a new outfit, the best of her stock. For Revel, it was unexpectedly stylish. The girl introduced herself as a member of the merchant guild named Lar. Revel gave his name, but doubted that she was ready to give him clothes just like that. Lar only smiled, reminding him that he had saved her from an orc, and that was more than enough. She added that the orc's horn could be sold for a large sum, enough for 3 suits of armor. But without membership in the trade guild, demonic materials cannot be sold legally. Only illegals buy them. Revel noted that this was a rather cruel procedure, but Lar assured him that these were the rules. After a moment's hesitation, he prepared to leave, but Lar was unwilling to let him go so soon. Assuming he was heading to the hotel town of Lifsil, she offered to give him a ride. The boy decided that this was a good opportunity to rest his legs and learn new spells with the help of wisdom, so he agreed. They soon arrived at Lifsil, a city that served as a haven for traders and travelers. He had to pass several such places on his way to the Labyrinth City. Here, People were hungry for news and gossip. At the tavern, Ravel was surrounded by customers amazed that he had killed an orc with one blow. Everyone was vying with each other to tell their children about it. When asked how to become as strong, Ravel replied that he trains until he is completely exhausted of magic. He does 100 abdominal exercises, push-ups, squats, back exercises, and then fences until he falls down from exhaustion. The visitors froze in silence, but Ravel laughed, saying it was a joke. In fact, his father, the owner of the dojo, trained him seriously, although such grueling methods were rare. At that moment, a man burst into the hall, loudly asking if the one who killed the orc had really come here. All eyes instantly turned to Revel, and several people even pointed their fingers at him. The man came very close, begging for help. He said that a gang of robbers had settled in the caves nearby. They had blocked access to the city's resources and were attacking key suppliers. If they were not stopped now, the city would lose its customers, and with them, its future. Ravel waved it off, noting that he was in a hurry and intended to leave the city today. When he suggested hiring mercenaries, the man cried out in despair that they were all already dead. However, if the one who could kill an orc with one blow took matters into his own hands, they would have hope. The boy didn't listen to the rest, apologized, and said that he couldn't help. Then Lar offered a gold coin and a carriage pulled by a fast horse as a reward. The thought of a month's living and saving time was tempting, but he still doubted. Too generous a reward. Lar explained that Lifsil was a great boon to the merchants, and that such a payment was insignificant compared to preserving the city. Upon hearing this, Ravel agreed and promised to carry out the task. The crowd immediately erupted in cheers, praising Lar for her generosity. As night fell, Ravel used his wisdom to gather information about the attacks. The bandits preferred to ambush in groups, relying on surprise, which was expected given their low combat ability. Most of them were people of mediocre talent, rejected by society, and he partly understood their bitterness, but he couldn't soften. Since they weren't used to being attacked, the best tactic was to attack first. To avoid wasting his strength, he decided to fight without a sword. One of the sentry bandits caught a strange rustling sound. The next moment, Revel rushed to the attack, instantly starting a fight. He decided to test what he could achieve by combining the knowledge of martial techniques gained through wisdom with strengthening the body. The opponent struck him with blows, one of which hit him on the head, and the guy realized that he was not perfect in terms of physical strength. However, the bandits fell one after another, unable to withstand his onslaught. Soon the cleanup site fell silent, but suddenly a spear whistled past his face, and someone large and impressive entered the cave. The man furiously cursed his men for losing to some boy, calling them useless rabble. When Ravel said he hadn't killed anyone, the stranger merely chuckled, warning that restraint would be deadly in a fight with him. Now Ravel faced a truly dangerous opponent. His weapon was a sword with the gift of superhuman strength, and the muscles themselves looked much more powerful than those of an ordinary warrior. However, the speed of his blade and his special gift were immediately noticeable. The man noticed that Ravel understood everything. His talent was the best swordsman, a skill equal to the level of the royal guard. When asked why he became a bandit, he replied that he did it for fun. Once he worked hard to protect people and became stronger, but his previous deeds did not bring him satisfaction. Now, with this power, he could take everything from others, things, and even lives. Revel growled softly that he was looking at a pathetic piece of trash. The man smirked and said that this trash was going to kill him, and then launched a series of heavy blows. It seemed that he had dealt with the young man without any difficulty, but the joy didn't last long. Revel stood in the same place, arms crossed. This technique was too simple for him. The opponent did not understand how this was possible. Could he really dodge all the attacks? There was not a scratch on him. Revel thought that if this was the level of a top swordsman, then he was really growing, because the opponent's attacks were faster and more powerful than Carlo's. In addition, his own magical energy and body enhancement efficiency had noticeably increased, so the efforts were not in vain. The man, frowning, asked who he really was. Revel replied that everyone thought he was weak because of his talent, and so he proved himself wrong by mastering many skills. If he stopped working, he could sink to the level of the same scoundrels. After these words, he delivered the finishing blow and knocked down his opponent. At that moment, as if out of nowhere, Lar appeared. She, looking at the defeated enemy, grinned and asked what he would do if he did rise up. Use the same ruthless combination again? But she admitted that it was impressive, because he had single-handedly dealt with the entire gang. When asked what she was doing there, Lar laughed and explained that these people were terrorizing merchants and taking their valuables. Revel finally understood what she had paid him for. But why hadn't she said so in the first place? Lar had replied that it was better for their city, beloved by traders, if they were beholden to themselves, not to him. It was a clever move. She added that traders only invest in profitable deals, and the plan worked even better than she expected. She simply used his presence as a distraction to return the desired item. At the same time, Lar quietly noted that the loss of Revel would be a big problem for the trade guild. It turned out that the object of her search was a small dragon, who was now sitting in a cage in her hands, peacefully looking at everyone. The captured thieves who had been harassing the mayor were tied up and handed over to the city guard. As agreed, Revel received a gold coin and a young, fast horse with a carriage. He headed to his next target, but there was a commotion in the background. Lar was trying to catch the dragon, which had broken free, was causing mischief and gnawing at everything. She ran up to Revel and indignantly said that he should see for himself what his pet had done. After some time, Revel tried to justify the dragon, saying that he was still small and did not understand what he was doing, but Rhea was furious. After all, he swallowed a rare ingredient. After completing the mission, she received a message from the guild. If she had brought this ingredient, she would have become a hero. With its help, it was possible to prepare a royal dish. But now the moment was lost. Revel, listening to her indignation, was only surprised. After all, it was the most ordinary component. However, Rhea objected that it would appear again only in 100 years. Then he offered to buy it, since it was so valuable. But Rhea told him the price: 5 platinum coins. For Revel, this sounded like a death sentence, because 1 platinum coin was equal to 100 gold coins. To accumulate such a sum, he would have to destroy 500 gangs. And even then, crime in the country would disappear faster than he could collect what he needed. Rhea thought for a moment, then said that since he wanted to help so much, then he can pay with his body. The dumbfounded young man froze, but the girl quickly clarified that she only meant accompanying her as a bodyguard to the city of Viminia. This trade center was the largest in the region, with many guilds and shops. For Revel, it was even convenient. He was planning a route to the labyrinthine city of Flavora anyway, and Viminia lay along the way. He wondered if the job was really worth 5 platinum coins. Rhea explained that most of her guild members were merchants. Lately, the monsters have become more and more dangerous, which hasn't happened for a long time. Traders don't dare act, and goods spoil right in the warehouses. Rhea took advantage of the situation by buying up stale products and reselling them in Velsia, where demand was only growing. This brought her huge profits and increased her authority in the guild. Revel just sighed. This girl knew how to look for profit everywhere. She also answered that big money now is even bigger money in the future. Once someone suffers losses, someone else makes a fortune. The boy decided that the negotiations could be considered complete. Rhea asked if he was ready to trust her with his life. He replied that fighting strong monsters would help him grow, and that this was exactly what he was striving for. Rhea laughed, hoping for his help. She warned that he couldn't enter the city with a monster without a submission contract. If he didn't sign it, the guards would take the dragon. Revel was indignant that she was only saying this now, and Rhea, as if nothing had happened, noted that she had simply forgotten to mention it. He began to wonder if he would be able to conclude the contract before arriving in Viminia. The girl only shook her head. The skill subordination contract is only given after subduing a monster, and if there is a talent built into the system. Usually the conditions were described in the records of the sages. It was said that in order to conclude the contract, one must use telepathy to communicate with the monster. With its help, it was necessary to transfer divine power in both directions, and for proper execution, to fill your body with magic, possessing magical circulation, and transfer it to the creature. Perhaps for those with the power of a demon in their veins, it was simple. Now that he knew the conditions, Revel could begin his preparations. Concentrate, fill his body with magic, and transfer it to the dragon. However, suddenly Rhea screamed that they were being attacked by monsters. In the carriage, which was moving at high speed, it looked especially strange, as if someone was deliberately looking for trouble. 1 gold coin seemed too small a price to pay for such an escort, but Rhea confidently controlled the crew, dodging dangers. After the fight, Revel reassured the girl, saying that he was fine. There was 1 day left until Viminia, and he knew that he might not have time to sign the contract. Rhea suggested that they train at night and travel during the day. Revel asked with annoyance why he needed this stupid procedure at all, but she did not understand why he was so stubbornly protecting the dragon. Revel's path lay in Flapperoo, and therefore, in a hurry, Ria did not have time to ask the mayor why this guy was so zealously protecting his dragon. The young man himself believed that the explanation was simple. He had once made a promise to someone that he would always protect this little boy. Now he was obliged to keep his word, no matter what it took. And if signing a contract would help, he would do it. At one point, Ria noticed that he seemed to control the land itself. It seemed incredible, and she wondered if he really had powers that were inherent to monsters. But Revel, as if nothing had happened, asked what they would have for dinner, since it was their last meal before arriving. Ria ignored the question and pounced on him with questions about whether he really had magic. The girl was amazed. Is his talent witchcraft? He can defeat bandits with his bare hands. She knew that a person can activate magic only with a natural inclination, a certain desired effect, and the execution of the corresponding magical operation. Revel, however, genuinely didn't understand why she was surprised, and pointed out that it was just a fire skill that he had acquired through hard training. Ria was indignant, taking it as a mockery, and they stared into each other's eyes. The girl didn't give up, but he said something about Iji Gakuen High School, and then she, squealing with delight, called it a very powerful skill. A picture appeared in her mind. A girl with a heavy wooden stick standing among dozens of defeated enemies. It was hard to believe that a man who had never held a sword could defeat 100 opponents with just a staff. This was the same hero who, after looking at a spell in a book once, could reproduce it in a couple of minutes. The only one worthy of the title of Savior. But Revel remembered his promise to become stronger than even this man, to protect himself and his loved ones. For this, he had to work tirelessly. After hearing the story, Ria asked with a sly smile if this promise was really made to his beloved. Embarrassed, he rushed away, remembering the training for the contract, because he only needed to align the magic wave. He rushed past the girl with such speed that she was almost knocked off her feet. Until now, he had tried various ways to control the magical power, but it only enveloped the outer shell of the body. He needed to connect his own magic with the dragon's power. But the waves didn't match. Each creature had its own magical frequency, and while it could be adjusted, it took effort. The dragon tied to the carriage was constantly straining to get free, and Revel could only hope it would wait. To change the magical frequency, it was necessary to create a weak flow of energy and release the desired wave through it. Over time, the range expands, but the process itself required colossal concentration. The dragon continued to rush about, and Revel angrily shouted at him not to interfere. The main thing now was not to make a mistake. He gathered his strength, and gradually the wavelength began to even out, giving hope for success. But at that moment, a monster rushed at him from behind. Revel easily overpowered the attacker, and realizing that he was made of wood, he realized that he should be burned. Then the dragon made a sound, declaring that he heard someone screaming and begging his master to let him go so that he could find the source. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Revel immediately gave the baby freedom. Q, having received his freedom, rushed away from the place like a whirlwind, and soon found what he had been looking for all this time. Ria appeared in front of him, trapped in a strange vice, and Revel immediately rushed to help. The girl was unconscious, but when it was all over, she suddenly came to. The guy congratulated her on waking up and asked her to thank not only him, but also the dragon. It was he who heard her call. Without Kyu, she would no longer be breathing. Ria was shocked and gently stroked the baby's head. After some time, they performed a ritual with Revel using the telepathy skill to form a contract, and it was soon successfully completed. The young man decided that now his pet needed a name. The dragon was given the nickname Q and was incredibly happy. When Ria asked what had happened, he brushed it off, saying it was nothing special. But soon, despite his caution, Revel didn't even notice Ria and Q disappearing from sight, and he realized he had to be more careful. At this time, a voice was heard saying that a person with the talent effort is capable of becoming the basis of someone's success. Ria, hearing this, immediately understood that God himself was speaking before her. She had already met him, having heard the legend in one of the cafes, but then decided that she was wrong. However, watching Revel wield a sword, easily use fire magic, subdue a dragon, mastermind magic, and agree to be her bodyguard, The girl was convinced that before her was a man with the talent of a hard worker. According to the divine words, this boy would be the key to her success. But whether he was really that valuable, she couldn't say yet. At this time, God himself addressed Ravel, warning that his path would be difficult, and if he did not make every effort, Anna would die. Meanwhile, in another place, a man in a dark suit asked a maid about Mr. Colt. She replied that he had locked himself in his office. Previously, he had been enthusiastically studying books on black magic. But after receiving the talent, he had become completely obsessed with it. He seemed to have lost touch with reality, and no one knew what to do. After all, Mr. Colt possessed the highest magical gift, the talent Sage. Meanwhile, in the trading city of Viminia, crowds of people filled the streets. Lalu went to the trading company and told Ria about an inn that cooperated with them, and soon they headed there using the map. Everything around was very different from the quiet village of Ravel. Streams of people were rushing back and forth, trading, making deals. But the guy even felt a little sick from such a crush, and Q worriedly asked if everything was okay with him. Revel suggested moving to a place where there would be fewer people. Says Q was worried that they might get lost in such a big city, since this was their first time there. But Ravel assured him that everything was under control. However, turning the corner, he found himself in an alley crowded with women in provocative costumes. They mocked him with smirks, asking if even such young boys came here now. Ravel, blushing, turned around and shouted that they were mistaken. It seemed that in every nook and cranny of this city, someone was engaged in shady business, and the young man would prefer to avoid unnecessary attention. Suddenly, a group of brazen bandits called out to him. They asked where he had come from, and demanded that he leave the dragon with them. A woman in fishnet stockings urged them to come to their senses, as it was shameful to attack children, but they rudely ordered her to shut up. Revel remembered that Q was worth a fortune. The dragon angrily told the owner not to rejoice. The bandits said that it was his own fault for coming to their area, and now he had no right to complain if they killed him. Set. Realizing that talking was useless, Ravel kicked one of them. He froze in place, stunned, and the young man noted that it was much easier to fight here than to push through the crush of people. He entered the fight, and the bandits only swung their clubs indiscriminately. Ravel mockingly suggested that they finish before anyone got hurt. Some of the spectators clapped their hands, others watched in horror. But the words only made the opponents angrier. Their faces twisted in anger, and Ravel gathered his strength. At this time, a girl in a robe approached the place of the noise, wanting to see what was going on there. Turning the corner, she saw Ravel single-handedly taking on an entire group, and one elderly woman even came out to thank him. After assessing her outfit, Ravel decided to keep his distance, but she still embraced him. At that moment, the girl in the robe exclaimed indignantly, not understanding how one could mock the weak while looking intently at Ravel. She was going to stop his violence, and he was trying to explain that he had been attacked, but was being strongly advised to run. Then a familiar melody reached his ears. The girl then launched a wind blast, a powerful area of effect magical attack, dangerous in such a tight space as it would have hurt random people too. Ravel tried to calm down, adjust the flow of mana, and meet the attack. Remembering his telepathy training, he concentrated and managed to extinguish his opponent's magic, which surprised her quite a bit. Then she decided to test him again. Not wanting to drag it out, the young man used binding magic to stop her actions. Suddenly, Mr. Colt appeared, pulled the girl named Anna up, and reminded her that it was forbidden to use such magic in the city. He apologized to Revel, explaining that the girl had too strong a sense of justice, clouding her mind. The man noted that the young man was able to extinguish someone else's magic with his hand, and his reserve of strength was clearly impressive. He asked his name, and Revel, remaining wary, nevertheless introduced himself. Sullen Colt added that if Ravel had not calmed Anna's energy, the damage could have been colossal, for which he thanked him. Anna disagreed, insisting that he had been aggressive from the very beginning. The boy continued to explain that he was the one who was attacked, but the cult brushed it off, saying that it did not matter to him. As an apology, he invited Ravel to his mansion, promising a lavish reception. Ravel hesitated, citing his promise to his friend, but Colt immediately suggested coming with his friend. His persistence was astonishing. When they met Ria later, she was stunned that he had met Colt. Ravel was surprised by their acquaintance, but Ria preferred not to explain anything. The cult's carriage they were riding in was striking in its impeccable appearance. After a few minutes of smooth driving, they had already arrived at the mansion. Rel couldn't help but wonder if this man was really that rich. Ria was only surprised that he hadn't guessed about it before. It turned out that the cult of Viminius is the heir of the Viminius family, the family that founded this city. The man said he had recently received an unusual book and was worried that it might be a fake. Fortunately, his fears were unfounded. The copy was genuine. Ravel asked if he was going to read it. Cult, with a slight grin, made it clear that he was already doing this. Ria mockingly added that he should have worked on his character after receiving the talent. Revel was indignant at such a tone towards the owner of the house. However, Ria insisted that the cult did not care about such words because it only recognized magic. She added that he had obtained the book illegally right in front of the merchant, and her irritation was quite obvious. The cult countered that it was impossible to reach the depths of magic by following human rules, and the girl agreed, although she reproached him for inaction. The man reminded her that this was his home, but Ria got angry because she didn't mean that. With his superior talent as a mage, he could enter the Hero Academy. Revel almost showed his surprise when he heard these words. It was the same level as Anna. Anna, while helping herself to cookies, explained that her master had actually intended to enroll in the academy when he received his talent, but had been forced to give it up for the sake of his inheritance. It was a revelation to Revel that it was possible to give up studying. The cult explained that Viminia was the most prosperous city in the kingdom of Theoria, and that the process of lineage inheritance was protected by the state. His refusal to study was accepted with difficulty, but such cases were almost impossible. Ria continued to ask why he had not studied, since it was unlikely that he had intended to be the heir from the start. The cult admitted that there were other reasons, but did not go into detail. He turned the conversation to Revel, asking about his talent. The young man, after a moment's hesitation, called himself a mage. The cult had already seen him suppress Anna's energy, and was impressed that he had dealt with 2 adult opponents with such ease. Then Revel clarified that his talent was called Diligence. Hearing this, Cult rose abruptly and leaned over the table, claiming that everything coincided with what was predicted. The young man did not understand what he was talking about, and Cult explained that this was what God had said. On the night he received his talent, God spoke to him and predicted that he would meet the owner of the talent, Diligence, if he refused to study at the Academy of Heroes. Moreover, the god claimed that this man would be able to quench his thirst for knowledge of magic. Revel, who was sitting opposite him, was restless and asked what they would do next, since he was already here. The cult confidently declared that they would go on a journey with them. Anna, hearing this, even choked them. The man was convinced that together they would be able to achieve more than he alone, and together shed light on the depths of magic. Revel did not fully understand what was being said, but he was not against the sage helping him. Anna was still expressing dissatisfaction, but Ria unexpectedly supported the idea, declaring that she would go with them. Revel was surprised, because initially, they had only agreed to accompany her to Viminia. The cult explained that there was no point in trying to understand her motives. She was a merchant to the core, and in every action she sought profit. Ria tried to object, but quickly realized that he was right. The thought had entered her mind that by traveling with this young man, she could accumulate a huge fortune. At the same time, she claimed that she wanted to go with him without self-interest, but the real reason was obvious. Revel asked if she had finally decided to join. He noted that magic was important, but it was also possible to live by human rules, and that they would need Lalu's support along the way. She had fooled him once before, but that was life in this world, and he wanted to experience it for what it was. Besides, Q kept insisting that he wanted to be with her. Lalu hugged the little dragon with delight, who reciprocated her affection for almond treats. The cult asked Revel if he intended to sell the pet, but Lalu hugged Q tightly, declaring that he was her friend and would never be traded. The man was surprised by such devotion, but Anna intervened, outraged that her master was going to travel with strangers. To her, this seemed unacceptable and reckless. She reproached Cult for abandoning his studies at the academy and his inheritance for an unknown journey. He, ignoring her indignation, asked if she could manage the affairs in his absence. Anna firmly assured him that she could handle it. For a while, everyone was silent, and Anna looked at the man with sadness and resentment in her eyes, as if trying to understand his motives. Their old promise came to mind, and now, it seemed, no one was going to back down from it. Anna, as if under the influence of someone else's will, said that he could leave, and she would take care of everything else. The cult explained that it had merely pulled from her subconscious the thought that she had always carried within her. According to the old traditions, it was better for an heir who did not wish to continue the family business to leave the mansion. This method would not affect her daily life, Revel remembered that psychic magic could alter the formed consciousness, and wondered how confident the cult was in its decision. The man added that the richer the owner of the mansion and the merchant guild became, the more arguments flared up between them, which led to higher taxes, changes in laws, and other conflicts. He believed that Anna was capable of finding compromises, although she, too, sometimes made mistakes. As an aristocrat, patrolling the city, she knew its inhabitants and their hard lives, understanding that no one wanted poverty, and that there had to be a way for everyone to live with dignity. However, Colt came from the main branch of the family, and Anna from the younger one. He would have gladly given up his place to her, but human laws did not allow it. Revel noted that persuading her was not enough. The cult confirmed that the mind magic was cast not only on Anna, but on the entire mansion and all members of the family. Soon, servants burst into the room and reported that the preparations for the journey were complete, while handing over to the master books on black magic, which he had not yet had time to study. When asked if he needed anything else, the girls wished him luck, and Revel was amazed at the speed with which everything was arranged. Cult, smiling, admitted that he used mind magic for the first time, inspired by what he read in a book. Lalu asked suspiciously if he had used it on her too, but Colt pretended not to understand the hint. Revel watched their conversation and realized that his diligence was making him stronger with each passing day. Somewhere deep inside, he found comfort in this, and the lines from the Diligence paragraph echoed in his head like wisdom. However, he clearly understood that diligence alone was not enough to bring reward. The thought of how far he had to go to achieve the highest talent made his head spin. The cult suggested going somewhere that would be interesting for both of them. Revel asked him about his technique of magical construction. The cult admitted that he had never encountered anything like it among the theories known to him, but the peculiarity of this magic was remarkably reminiscent of the ancient one, considered lost and preserved only in legends. He wondered where the young man had learned it from. Revel thought for a moment and replied that he had learned it all himself. The cult, intrigued, insistently asked for details. The technique of blooming flowers with a spell was impressive. The girl reminded them that they would have to return once the conversation was over. The journey that had begun after leaving Viminia seemed exciting. Those who preferred dangerous roads to safe ones often encountered monsters along the way, but such encounters were just another training session. In their rare moments of respite, they studied magic and exchanged knowledge with the cult. Lalu told stories about cities, people, and things while driving the carriage, and her stories, full of personal impressions, could be listened to endlessly. Q, with his presence, only completed this picture. Lalu and the cult often argued, but their squabbles did not escalate into conflicts. 6 days passed like this, and Flepara appeared ahead. It was a place where desperate adventurers flocked. The labyrinthine city of Prepara. There was a huge labyrinth here, which had appeared many years ago and was constantly changing its shape. In its depths lived countless magical creatures that inspired fear. However, a few brave souls decided to explore it, and the only one who managed to return alive took with him untold riches and returned to his homeland. He claimed, a former prisoner of the labyrinth, said that this place attracted nameless criminals and those who wanted to get rich quick, because here he found not only everything he wanted, but also something he never dreamed of. The only danger was that no one could be sure whether he would live to see tomorrow. Over time, a city grew around the labyrinth, where the most desperate adventurers gathered. When Revel got here, he remembered the words of his father, who called this place an environment where the strong can sleep peacefully. He thought that by joining the Explorers Guild and making a name for himself, he would be able to fight monsters that he would never meet in ordinary life. However, first they had to choose which guild to join. Lalu volunteered to help find a suitable one, but admitted that she would be useless in matters of admission to the ranks. Kurt suggested trusting him as a talented mage, and not a merchant, to which Lalu only reacted with irritation. Unexpectedly, they met a girl with long rabbit ears, who had an idea. She assumed that they were looking for a guild, and immediately recommended hers to them, assuring them that it was excellent. Lalu sharply objected, and the group headed away, which noticeably upset the stranger. Revel, however, managed to ask Lalu if everything was okay with her. She explained that guilds above the average level use special scouts with rare abilities to recruit members. If a candidate is excessively shy, it means he lacks these qualities. According to her, such people are unlikely to be useful, which means the guild itself is small and unlikely to be strong. To gain power, they should look for a more influential organization, because weak associations will not provide the necessary growth. Kurt unexpectedly agreed with her. Nearby, invitations were being made to join another guild that was rumored to produce swordmasters. Kurt marveled at the prestige of it, but Lalu asked irritably if he only thought about becoming strong. She explained that the title of swordmaster was only awarded to those who had perfected their swordsmanship, and was usually given to the best of the best Hero Academy graduates or military veterans. In their case, Lalu claimed, the guild did not focus on talent, but relied on special, grueling training. Although it did produce many masters, it was precisely this training that scared off most newcomers. Revel was interested and suggested that they at least take a look at this guild, but Lalu reminded them that it was because of her methods that people left him. In her opinion, this was all just a clever deception, and they should turn in another direction. However, the hair girl called out to them and gestured forward. The main building of the guild appeared in front of them. It was so huge that everyone froze in surprise. Kurt doubted his premonition, and Labilu noted with irony that she seemed to have lost even her trading sense. Revel, however, did not take his eyes off the majestic structure. Entering inside, they found themselves in a spacious but quiet room. The girl with the rabbit ears loudly called her father, saying that guests had arrived. There was only one person in the spacious dining room. The man with the bottle in his hand greeted them unfriendly, reproaching his daughter for trying to lure clients again. The girl objected that because of his attitude no one came to them, and Ravel was surprised that the two turned out to be family. They were so different. The man retorted that there were more new members, only because the daughter, having reached 12 years old, joined the guild herself. Kurt, listening to their exchange of barbs, suspected that nothing good would come of it. The man complained that newcomers give up everything at the first difficulties, not wanting to leave their comfort zone. He mentioned that the only people left in the guild were stubborn people like a certain Aiden. This name made Revel freeze, because that was his father's name. Both the man and the girl turned their attention to him at the same time. The man snatched the sword from Revel and, after examining it, recognized the familiar pattern. The young man immediately returned the weapon, unhappy that his things were being touched without permission. The man just laughed, noting that he was behaving exactly like he did in his youth. He asked if this guy was the son of the swordmaster Aiden. The letter that had arrived in a single copy many years ago said that he was supposed to appear here. Having learned who his father was, those present immediately pounced on Revel with questions. Earlier, he had mentioned that Aiden taught fencing in the village, but had kept silent about his title as a swordmaster. Moreover, Revel himself had magical skills. The man became even more cheerful, amazed by such a guest. He introduced his daughter as Fia and identified himself as Royd, the heavy sword demon he said Aiden was supposed to tell his son about. Revel did not remember such stories, which Royd noted as another similarity to his father. He added that Aiden was incredibly strong, the strongest in all of Flepar, and inquired about Revel's own talents. It turned out that Royd only had the talent of an ordinary swordsman, while Aiden, through persistent efforts, had reached the level of a swordmaster. The man considered him outstanding, but reminded him that everything ultimately depended on the hands of the person himself. Revel remembered that his father had long since stopped paying attention to his talent, and suspected that they were simply being drawn here by name. Faya mentioned the special training that had caused the guild to decline, with most people unable to withstand it and leaving. Kurt sarcastically agreed that the situation was close to collapse, but Royd still noted that the guild was still afloat. The arrival of Aiden's son in the guild was seen as a stroke of luck. A newcomer willing to endure any trials seemed like an ideal candidate for their special training, which included methods that surpassed even the training of Aiden's time, with techniques from a special menu for enhancing strength. Cess Revel noted that they intended to inspect other guilds as well, and therefore the decision to join should be postponed. The man clearly did not expect such an answer, and was surprised that they were going to leave. Revel explained that choosing a guild requires a serious approach. However, the owner of the building did not try to convince them otherwise and only confidently stated that this is where one can gain real power, and therefore he is not worried about the outcome. Cess Revel mused that most people who came to the Labyrinth City were looking for experiences that were not available in normal life, and missions that the smaller guilds could not offer, making them less attractive. Saphia was indignant that her father continued to insist, even when she asked him to stop, because it took her a lot of effort to tidy up the place and invite someone to act as a scout. Kurt, watching the squabble, suggested that they hurry up to visit the best places, otherwise they might be delayed here. Cess Lalu supported this proposal, and soon the company found itself in the Red Wolf Guild. They sat around the table, discussing how impressive the headquarters of this organization looked. The guild had a decent reputation, and its members included 4 scouts of A rank and above. Each scout started at F rank, and advancement was dependent on their abilities. The higher the rank, the more dangerous the monsters, and the more profitable the missions. The Red Wolf had 3 A-rank scouts and 1 S-rank scout, making the guild quite strong. Sace Kurt noted that the conditions here were clearly better than in the previous guild. Lalu agreed, but admitted that she still felt sorry for the hair girl, and now she felt guilty for refusing. Suddenly, a man burst into their table, and the situation became tense. One of the participants with fangs shouted at another that he had no right to break the contract with him, because he was of higher rank. The crowd called on Agito to stop the argument. Noticing the strangers, Agito asked if they were looking for the guild. Sace Kurt confirmed that they were looking at different places today. At that moment, Ravel felt an unpleasant feeling, a familiar aura of arrogance that he had encountered before. Agito assumed that this was just a boring boy. He demanded that Ravel introduce himself and talk about his talent. Kurt spoke first, stating that his gift was a sage, which provided outstanding mastery of magic. Revel, however, called his talent effort. Agito waved it off indifferently, saying that it was the first time he had heard of such a thing, and suggested that they look for another guild. He only showed interest in Kurt, offering him to join their squad. Revel, however, thought that it was better to simply ignore such people. Kurt was indignant that one could judge strength solely by talent, calling his interlocutor pathetic. Agito was offended by this, and he angrily stated that a gifted person, with due effort, would always surpass someone who did not possess a rare gift. He proudly announced that his own talent was a high-class swordsman, which he had mastered back in the Hero Academy. Having left his training, he came to this guild on the advice of his mentors. Sace Ravel noted that the requirements for newcomers are high, but he questioned how justified this approach is. He believed that they are subject to the same prejudices as everyone else. Agito assured that in this city, strength meant everything, and Ravel's unknown talent was not worth any attention. 100 people like him could have handled it. Sace Ravel asked a counter-question. What would happen if the weak made such an effort that he was able to surpass the gifted? Agito responded by holding his sword to his throat, calling him a talentless person, but received a sharp slap on the back of the head from a girl with short hair and cat ears, who asked why he was provoking quarrels again. She apologized to the guests for her partner, and Takumo and Karina intervened to try to break up the argument. Lalu worriedly asked Revel if he was okay, and he assured her that everything was fine. It gradually became clear that they had entered a guild that specialized in the healing arts. They were asked if they had already joined any organizations and were told that they would meet at a newcomers tournament. Lalu wondered what kind of event that was. The girl explained that once a year in Freypar, a large tournament is held exclusively for beginners, and the winning guilds traditionally win in military competitions as well. Now Ravel understood where Agito was going to settle their dispute. They were offered to end the conversation, as the situation became increasingly tense. After leaving the building, the trio came to the conclusion that this guild clearly did not live up to its title of a strong organization. And yet, as a large and well-known organization, the Red Wolf remained a suitable option for missions of varying difficulty levels. After they left, Agito grinned, looking forward to meeting the sage in the arena. The girl next to him thought that Agito himself was still inexperienced and too self-confident. She noticed that at the moment when he was about to bring the sword down on the enemy's neck, he could, with a barely noticeable movement, cut his stomach. Hearing this, Agito was dumbfounded. He did not even understand how he had made such a mistake. The girl emphasized that true mastery does not belong only to him, and he should be more attentive to his opponents. Having finished the conversation, she left, and Agito angrily promised himself to take it out on Revel. Meanwhile, Revel himself reasoned that victory in the beginners tournament would bring glory and a stream of assignments, which meant that the path to any guild would be open. Kurt just laughed, noting that this was quite in keeping with his comrade's spirit, and wondered if he was trying to become a sage. Still, they had an idea of which direction to move in, although a slight feeling of dissatisfaction remained after the visit to the Red Wolf. Sace Lalu called out to Revel and asked if he was serious about the rigorous training. She was curious about what it was like. The guy suggested that it didn't depend on talent, and even Kurt could participate in it. The blonde had a bad feeling, but Lalu, on the contrary, was delighted by the opportunity to level up. Revel smiled and noted that it was better to be in shape first, otherwise Kurt would quickly get exhausted. In the Labyrinth City, the Durandal Arena, a host named Kana greeted the audience, promising to make the newcomers tournament an unforgettable spectacle. She was everyone's favorite, and announced that the commentator would be Sid from Red Wolf, an S-rank adventurer. Handing the microphone to Sid, she asked him what he expected, but then stated that the audience wanted to see the fights immediately. The first round was between Ajito of Red Wolf, who had the talent of high-class swordsman and was the expected favorite, and Revel of Tempest, whose talent was Diligence. The crowd greeted the announcement with laughter, hearing of Revel's talent, not believing that he was capable of standing up to his opponent. Lalu, sitting nearby, noted with displeasure that they should shut up and watch the fight. Sesta, one of the spectators, hearing about the pair's composition, asked to clarify whether the guy had a chance, because with an opponent like Ajito, he would face a difficult test. Soon, the loudspeaker announced the beginning of the round. A few weeks before the tournament, Fia happily celebrated their first day in the guild and suggested throwing a party. Ses Revel volunteered to be in charge of cooking, and soon, everyone was enjoying delicious dishes. He realized that it had been a long time since he had cooked for anyone, and he enjoyed working with fresh ingredients. Kurt noted that the ability to create exquisite dishes, even from unfamiliar ingredients, is a special gift. Q also got his share, although he dozed off most of the time. Ses Faya, seeing Q for the first time, was surprised that she was seeing a real monster. Revel explained that it was a baby dragon, and he was very cute. The girl happily hugged the baby, and he recognized her as kind. The dragon frowned and declared that he could tell a good person from a bad one, relying on more than just hugs. The girl checked the lists and records while the narrator explained that Lloyd had stopped adventuring due to his injuries, and now there were only 3 people left in Tempest: the narrator himself, Kurt, and Fia. Her companions asked her about her talent, and she, after a slight hesitation, replied that she was a magic shooter, causing an unexpected reaction from the others. The comical member of the group enthusiastically showed off his favorite revolvers, explaining that they fired bolts of magical energy for long-range combat or support. The others watched with obvious interest. The group assessed the equipment, one complaining about the lack of funds, another calling it third-rate, while the merchant listened silently. One participant explained that using the weapon required special training to control the magic and prevent the revolvers from breaking, while another participant noted that this information was unexpected. The mentor commented on River's desire for special training, linking it to his desire to strengthen his own strength, while the others responded with jokes, and River himself expressed his readiness for the tests. The girl asked him why he was so persistent in trying to become stronger. He replied that he considered himself to be quite experienced, but still wanted to continue improving. The young man called out to the others, demanding that they stop, and the 3 girls and the small creature repeated the words about women several times in response. One of the girls noted that her childhood friend had become a dragon knight, although Anna preferred to avoid fighting. He remembered how she had strived to enter an elite academy despite her desire to lead an ordinary life, and after these memories they had separated. The divine being thought about the need to protect her after she was enrolled in the academy, and decided to strengthen his own strength to protect her from difficult battles. The girl was surprised when she first heard about her childhood friend, another participant laughed, and the third reacted with envy. The girl agreed that the priority would be to strengthen River before training him to become a master swordsman. In the arena, the opponents took up positions. One, holding a 2-handed sword, recalled the lessons learned in the previous skirmish with the enemy, and the other prepared a katana. She warned that today's fight would be difficult and urged caution, while also asking if the altercation was hiding something related to their clothing. The cat-eared woman responded boldly, brushing aside concerns about her reputation, while the other, with a piercing gaze, demanded that they stop their idle talk, which increased the tension between them. Ajito lunged forward with a powerful thrust, and his opponent prepared to parry the blow as the first swing of the sword came down with a powerful momentum. The blades met in a fierce duel. One declared that there would be no mercy. The other noted that the arena allowed them to fight without risk of death, even if they were hit. The Grand Arena of Freypar was described as a top-class magical mechanism, where the battle ends when the health bar drops to 0. In the arena, the opponents exchanged powerful blows, and the spectators watched attentively, knowing that the participants could fight without fear or hesitation. The crowd was excitedly discussing the outcome of the fight, shouting encouragement for River, but one observer expressed doubt that he could compete with a true master of the sword. River himself, meanwhile, was intently preparing for his next move. He recalled the time he spent with his father in his hometown, when he tried to imitate his sword techniques and strengthened his blows with magic. The swordsman called out to Ajito, declaring that he would demonstrate the achievements he had gained through special training, and the opponent concentrated, preparing to accept the challenge. The two boys encouraged River, who moved forward, trying to keep up, and the small creature followed them down the wooden corridor. The comical member of the group ran with maximum concentration, while the instructor reminded that there were still 50 laps left, and the noble lady sat calmly next to the little creature. The mentor asked if the girl felt focused enough, explaining that strength required concentration and caution, to which she asked if it was too easy to run 100 laps. Someone made a hand gesture, explaining that there was not much difference between running and fighting, and the interlocutor expressed doubt about these words. River clenched his fist, struggling to resist Lloyd's gravity magic, realizing that he couldn't even enchant his body to withstand it. The opponent with the massive sword attempted to wrest the weapon from his comrade with the decorated blade, but his skill was unexpected. River watched in amazement. Exhausted and covered in sweat, River declared that he could not take it anymore, and his comical companion continued to run with difficulty, cursing the special training. Deciding not to give up, River considered using additional magic to speed things up, fearing failure if his tactics did not change. The enemy, noticing this, commented that he was finally getting serious. The girl asked if River was okay, lying on the ground in a dizzy state, while a powerful blow was heard in the arena. He tried to maintain his concentration, thinking about using anti-gravity magic, but his body didn't have time to adapt to the sudden load. Kurt demonstrated remarkable control over magic, while the other boy watched him closely in the cramped, dilapidated room. One of the participants explained that he counteracted Lloyd's gravity magic with a force similar to that used by sorcerers, and the other listened with interest. Rivera was asked about defending Anna, to which she objected to being labeled as a villain, as the situation became increasingly tense. River scolded Lloyd sharply, while another participant calmly noted that he understood the desire to restore morale, but warned against such methods being excessive. The swordsman skillfully dodged the blows, while two observers asked Sid why the attacks kept missing and what was going on. The mentor explained that werewolves are outstanding fighters, especially Ajito, whose swordsmanship and hunting skills ensure that he can hit no matter what the enemy does. River struggled to land a blow, and his opponent angrily demanded that the fight stop, losing patience as the fight progressed. The onlookers watched the proceedings as the bald man explained that River's tactics, originally intended for fighting monsters, were also effective against Ajito, and one of the girls wondered why he was heading straight for him. The comical participant said that thanks to the enhancing magic, his body has become much more mobile, allowing him to attack, dodge, and move at the same time. The enemy explained that saving strength gives him the opportunity to carry out unexpected attacks at any moment. The group watched the fight, while a girl with a gem on her forehead explained that complex techniques were mastered through a combination of endurance, mental strength, magic, and perseverance. One of the spectators asked Sid an irritated question, recalling his words about River having no chance against the highest fencing skill. Seisajito continued to take more and more damage as he continued to fight, and his opponent realized with frustration that the fight was much more intense than he expected. The fighter with disheveled hair and sharp teeth took a breath, thinking that in this fight, the outcome did not depend on life or death, but only on skill. As he, feeling tired, realized that his opponent's plan was to gradually reduce his reserves of strength to zero, and recognized this as a smart tactic for a fighter with constant concentration. Say confident observer teased Ajito for losing, but he calmly replied that it was stupid to feel ashamed, which caused surprise in the other, who doubted whether it was really the same Ajito in front of them. The mentor sternly reminded Ajito of the importance of concentration, while the comical participant watched on, and River noted the situation with confidence. The group was amazed to realize that the fire projectile created during the fight had gone unnoticed, appreciating the clever trick of the initially hidden spell. He wondered if this move had been left for later, to create distance and deceive the enemy into thinking that keeping his distance was safe. The crowd watched the fight while a statue of a cloaked figure with a sword stood in the center of the arena, and in the mind of one of the fighters, a tactic of misleading his opponent by controlling the distance was formed. The enemy prepared to deliver a powerful blow, and the fighter, with the talent of a fencer, gathered his strength, deciding not to miss this decisive moment for defense. Ajito was surprised to see the round he lost end, and the participant with the small creature declared that a serious opponent had appeared in the arena, while the other two watched in silence. A young swordsman, holding his sword in its sheath, stood in the center of the arena after his victory, and the host announced his triumph and announced the start of the second round. In the second round of the newcomers tournament, Frappar Oscar faced off against an elite swordsman from the Crown Sword Guild, and the two were preparing for a tense duel. Cess. In the third round, the opponent was a warrior with an axe from the Flying Axe Guild, who entered into a fierce battle with a fighter in heavy armor. The narrator noted that after defeating Agito in the first round, River's reputation had grown rapidly, and now it was time for a fourth fight. The crowd cheered as the young swordsman stood confidently in the center of the arena after defeating a strong opponent in his first fight. The girl, who possessed the talent of a magic shooter, entered the arena without suffering a single defeat or receiving a single scratch, and the spectators reacted with caution. The crowd loudly cheered for Fia, calling on her to teach River a lesson while she had her back to him, and one observer noted how the audience perked up when the girl entered the arena. A determined opponent with a pair of pistols challenged River to a duel, confidently demanding to demonstrate his skills while the spectators waited for the fight to begin. A week before, in the noisy city with a majestic building in the center, cries of surprise and alarm could be heard from afar. The red-haired participant looked at the broken revolvers in panic, while the silver-haired mage explained that the breakage was due to magic bullets, and the blonde knight doubted the correctness of their actions. One of the team members asked about the condition of the other, fearing that he might be hurt, but was told that everything was fine, although the feeling remained unfavorable. The girl suggested buying a new weapon, but the long-eared companion explained that it was too expensive and that her father had obtained the revolvers in a dungeon abroad, raising the question of why they didn't go to a blacksmith. She admitted that she had no other choice, but leaving the Frappar tournament for beginners was unacceptable to her. The red-haired participant asked Fia with annoyance about the reason for her refusal, and she, hesitating a little, explained that without a weapon, as a magic shooter, she would not be able to use spells and would lose at the very beginning of the fight. The companion insistently demanded that River speak out, but he only remained silent, stunned. The red-haired participant, with a smile on his lips, suggested making magic pistols themselves, while two girls nearby reacted with incomprehension. A new participant intervened in the conversation, while another warned Kurt about the problem with River. A third compared creating a magical weapon to choosing between cooking at home and going out to a restaurant. The girl hesitantly replied that she had chosen the magic iron in Rearsil, and the small figure asked if it was possible to create a magic pistol without a recipe, having only a ready-made drawing. They exchanged half-joking proposals. One mentioned selling things for money. The other noted that he would not refuse such a deal. The young man concentrated and found a suitable magical skill, beginning to experiment with alchemy with interest, although he doubted its effectiveness in battle. The girl reacted with surprise when he asked about her weapon preferences, and the small creature suggested using lightweight pistols for dual carry, which gave him the idea of reducing recoil through lightweight materials. The girl with long hair warned River, and the long-eared companion enthusiastically offered to watch the process of creating the weapon while he explained the stage of installing the sight. One of the participants asked River about the magic he used, to which he replied that he used alchemy, not spells. The silver-haired mage explained that alchemy involved the formation of metals, after which the girl with the headband asked if blacksmithing could be considered a talent, and the man added that their sage Kurt could master it with enough persistence. The comical contestant tried in vain to pull out his sword, which was stuck in a wooden block, commenting on the danger of the situation, while the female knight looked on, addressing Kurt and River. The magically gifted friend doubted whether her strength would be able to lift such a heavy material, but the comic participant confidently declared that everything would work out. The girl with long ears noted River's confidence, while he looked puzzled at the praise. Those present reacted with confusion to the news of River's creation of a weapon, wondering what this had to do with the son of a swordmaster. Cess Ravel, concentrating, decided to keep his distance to launch a series of attacks, activating his enhanced vision ability to accurately predict his opponent's movements. The red-haired contestant let out a loud exclamation as he watched River confidently dodge the shots, closing the distance to her opponent. Sace River knew he had to find a way to counter her tactics as she went on a brutal sword offensive, and he set up a defense. The girl with long hair admitted her defeat, and the crowd reacted violently, considering the outcome of the fight already decided. The enemy stopped abruptly, declaring defeat in confusion as his strategy was foiled and his weapon knocked out, while the female knight wondered why he had stopped fighting. The mentor called the fighting style mediocre, realizing that this was how a magic shooter fought, and the red-haired participant reacted with bewilderment. The older man reproached his interlocutor for never using weapons in missions and not knowing about their breakdowns, but admitted that basic combat skills were obtained thanks to Lloyd's training. She accused him of not wanting to fight seriously, and admitted that she lacked his confidence, and he listened in silence. He replied that he was not completely confident, but felt more comfortable knowing that he had done his best, even if the outcome was different. She encouraged Fia not to give up, reminding her that Lloyd had worked hard for their training, for Tempest, and for herself. But Fia remained silent. Tessada Gito stood there in thought, and Karina, standing behind him, commented on his state as he recalled his fight with River. The girl with cat ears spoke of Agito's superiority in battle, while another interlocutor admitted that, despite studying his tactics, he was unable to predict his opponent's actions, suffering a complete defeat. She explained that knowing Agito's fighting style and habits, she could eventually gain the upper hand, and the fox-eared companion cursed in irritation. The Shesh Agito clenched his fist, vowing not to lose next time and to become stronger. The dark-skinned girl with cat ears noted that his determination was his greatest asset, despite the difference in his innate abilities. The girl with long hair and bunny ears stuttered, trying to say something, and a voice from the side noted that this was only the basis for River's future growth. Se's companions watched as one of the participants delivered flawless blows. Some compared him to another man, and suggested that fear might have been the cause. He warned about the need to keep your distance and then attack with pistols to deal damage while maintaining concentration. Ses Ravel recognized the move used in the first round, and dodged the powerful sword strike aimed at him. The man noticed with alarm that her health bar was not decreasing, assuming that it was due to a lack of magical energy, and wondered what would happen to Fia. River charged forward determinedly, intending to finish the fight and take the victory, while the commentator announced that Fia was now defenseless. The girl opened fire with her pistols in a jump, and the two observers expressed disbelief, doubting her pretense and denying the lack of magic. She decided to go on the offensive and deliver the finishing blow, expecting River to rush forward after noticing her false lack of magical energy. The girl realized that the magical part of the pistols had been changed and exclaimed sharply, holding out her hand. Ses. The tournament between members of the same guild came to an end, and the crowd cheered for River as the winner. The silver-haired mage leaned against the wall, thinking about how much effort they had put into becoming stronger together, and quietly noted their camaraderie. One of the participants told another that he had found a book that belonged to Master Kurt's father in a trash container, to which he received the answer that the book had already been read. He calmly explained that he had memorized all the contents and therefore no longer needed the book. But his interlocutor objected that this was no reason to throw it away. The conversation grew tense, with one insisting that they focus on learning magic rather than trivialities, while the other asked who Kurt's father was and warned him to stop talking nonsense or leave. The energetic host enthusiastically announced the start of the final match of the Frapara Novice Tournament, while the serious man stood nearby in silence. She introduced the finalists, and a figure in light armor entered the arena, and a cat peeked out from behind the shoulder of one of the characters. The host called Kurt from the Tempest Guild and noted his talent as Sage as he confidently appeared in the arena. Trevel appeared before the audience, demonstrating his talent Zeal to the loud cries of the crowd. The woman in glasses asked him if he had taken a weapon, and received a calm confirmation from him, to which she responded with understanding. The young man confidently declared that he intended to become the strongest by defeating the Sage, which caused surprise and lively responses from the audience. The stern mentor reacted silently to the news that River intended to use magic in battle, and a loud laugh from his red-haired companion was heard nearby. The girl with glasses told River with a sly smile that he was a source of interest and spectacle, noting that his words sounded impressive. The mentor confidently invited River to demonstrate his abilities, and a magical symbol shone above the young man's outstretched hand. The character noticed that the fire spears had gone out and wondered why, before realizing that the flames had been extinguished by wind magic, which required less energy than water magic. She mentioned Q Ral, the Fia Academy of the Tempesta Elite Guild, and Anna to herself, noting that none of this was worth attention. The opponent explained that giving up the unnecessary for the sake of studying magic and combining modern knowledge with ancient knowledge will allow one to achieve depth of magical mastery. He questioned the point of wanting to be the strongest, while she countered that these things were not unnecessary at all, calling them the complete opposite, and addressed him by his name, Kurt. The mage, with a confident look, summoned a crackling energy around his palms, declaring that he must win and demanding that his determination be understood. The man admitted that he doubted his abilities, and the woman with 3 eyes asked if this was really a duel between beginners. The female knight struggled to resist Kurt's overwhelming magical power, acknowledging its power but refusing to give in, even though she was barely holding on. The man with glasses explained that the mental spell cast in Viminia was a powerful magic that disrupted the flow of thoughts and transformed them into new ones, and added that there was no need for another to learn it. The mentor advised against using mental spells in combat, as the enemy would be equally cautious, and suggested instead studying truly powerful spells. In a wooden house, two young men were discussing magic. One was lying on the top bunk. The other was sitting below, talking about the possibility of learning ancient, powerful spells. Revel pondered his decisions alone in the humble room, deciding not to give up on learning and believing that the memorization process would work once understanding came. The magician, with a self-confident look, declared that they were wasting their time persistently mastering unnecessary magic. A friend with a talent for fencing attacked swiftly, suggesting that they abandon all unnecessary things and focus on mastering magic rather than on avoiding weak spells. There were no signs of magic depletion on him, indicating that he had undergone rigorous training, and the observer realized that he was in the presence of a sage. The determined young man, clutching his sword, vowed to win, and the man in the glove noted that he was able to use any magic he chose. The woman asked if it was really that simple, and the strong man admired the strength comparable to the monstrous and wondered if he was still a sage, while the other noted a rare desperation for Kurt. The opponent chuckled, claiming that Kurt was still capable of fighting despite the difficulties, and he, not giving in, continued to stand before him. The silver-haired man explained that the magical artifact, created based on ancient technology, replaces real damage, allowing you to fight without risk, while hovering among the debris. A huge, rotating sphere of energy formed above the city, and someone's voice wondered if excessive damage could result in the death of the enemy. The young man asked whether such behavior was truly worthy of a sage, and suggested that they continue to find out. The enemy said that he retreated to draw a powerful magic circle, intending to counter the magic of the mage, strengthened by the circle of the sage, and find out whose power would be greater. He thought darkly about his own uselessness, fearing that he would be rejected as a bad partner if he heard the phrase that he was not needed. The armored warrior noted Kurt's focus on magic, while the cloaked man calmly admitted that he held no ill will or ridicule for the perseverance talent, adding that he still needed an ally. The man in glasses noted River's reasoning, admitting that what was said was quite reasonable and acceptable, and allowed himself a barely noticeable smile. They discussed how mental magic creates an illusion based on the desire to defeat the opponent, consuming less energy than illusion magic, and lasting only a few seconds. The mentor asked about the nature of the illusion and the reason for its failure, and the comic character stated that he would have found another way to win anyway. This victory was awarded to the young magician for his success in the duel with the sage, and he received the title of Supreme Black Magician, while a man standing aside advised him not to be modest. The novice tournament came to an end, and the crowd debated whether the champion was the one with the talent, perseverance, or the strongest worker, while the young fighter clenched his fist. An elderly man with a beard explained that Aiden had always sought to master the adamant blade, a flawless combination of magic and sword technique that could cut through anything. The character wondered if he would be able to master the holy sword, and allowed the thought that he might even be able to surpass it. A few weeks had passed since the rookie tournament in Frappar, and the streets of the quiet town stretched past buildings with mountains in the background. The comical character asked with irritation why he was in this place, standing in front of the massive wooden door when heavy footsteps were heard nearby. Ajito noticed something and said a short, "Oh." Then the salesman behind the counter laughed, and Ajito turned around to greet him. A confident girl with long hair greeted the newcomer to Tempest Reincarnated and jokingly asked his opinion, mentioning the mistakes on the quest board. She complained about the abundance of tasks after the tournament ended, and he admitted that he was busy with many things. The girl explained that the Tempest Guild was famous in Frappar for its size, as well as its item shop and weapon and armor shops, while the others listened attentively. A Sei character with cat ears mentioned the tournament champion and finalist, and then talked about a girl with bunny ears who was in 5th place. Another character responded with curiosity and a little displeasure. The girl with long hair reprimanded Ralu, who quietly apologized while the others watched. She then stated that Fur had returned from completing the quest. She mockingly accused Ajito of losing the first fight due to underestimating his opponent's talent and strength. A confident woman suggested opening small courses on magic. A man with a mustache noted that it was worth coming here for this, and an elderly man with glasses expressed surprise at the simplification of the magical structure. Sei, distinguished resident of a large city, invited his interlocutor to his estate, asking whether he belonged to high society, while a quiet voice expressed doubt about the change in his attitude.
He apologized for his hostility and admitted his dislike for aristocrats, and the man with the mustache, laughing merrily, remarked that he was only interested in studying magic and suggested that they leave quickly. The young man with glasses thought about it, and the small chibi figure explained that Kurt would meet many people in this world, which could be useful. The cat-eared girl hesitantly named her magical talent, while the fox-eared boy inquired about the reason for the change, and she sarcastically asked if he was lecturing her. The girl asked Karina about the whereabouts of the hard-working man, and Karina explained that he was thinking of applying for the title of adventurer and had not yet accepted any tasks, after which the action moved to a flight of stairs. The comical character screamed in pain after being stabbed with a sword by a friend with a talent for fencing during a training match. He tried to scratch the adamantine blade and thought about how to master a technique that could do this. Someone picked up a sparkling crystal and asked River its name, to which she, looking intently, replied, "Nutcracker." The mentor demonstrated the unusual stone, explaining its durability and mentioning that the protagonist's father had once cut it, emphasizing that for him, there were no truly indestructible things. The mentor praised River's fighting skills, adding that by studying the opponent's habits and fighting style, one can identify his weaknesses, and even a series of small attacks will eventually lead to victory. The figure found itself surrounded by shadowy opponents, and was pondering how to break through their strong defenses and identify their vulnerabilities. The mentor informed River that in order to achieve the title of the strongest in the world, he must master the infallible strike, called Adamantine Blade, which ignores defense. The character noted the difficulty of using the adamantine blade, explaining that it requires maximum transfer of magical energy and a reduction in its density through demonization. While he did not understand how the body remained hardened during magical attacks, he had difficulty training, realizing that his father's skill was not recorded in the wisdom. And despite persistence, repeated attempts did not bring progress, and unsuccessful strikes spent energy in the same amount. The young swordsman concentrated, gripping the hilt of his blade tightly, and was determined to continue until he reached his goal. The girl happily informed River that she had contacted the League of Adventurers and was ready to name his rank. He looked around the empty arena in surprise and asked out loud where River was. The determined girl ordered Kahin and Rohin to act faster, and the two twins responded with an affirmative cry when a magical or fire attack erupted nearby. The comical character praised the swordsman's interaction in defeating the monster, hugging her from behind and expressing confidence in the high test result. Tana expressed concern while two girls nearby laughed, and another woman turned around warily when asked the reason, and she admitted to having a bad feeling about the forest. The girls assured each other that there were no dangerous monsters in the forest, and that they were not in any danger within the Elite Academy's zone, although one of them still expressed concerns about their outstanding talents. The page featured a detailed sketch of a red-haired, lion-headed beast called a manticore, known for its 3 poisonous stingers on its tail and its aggressive habit of hunting humans. The Adventurers, Federation, assigned the highest S rank to this threat, and the companions, shocked and filled with anxiety, realized that it was necessary to quietly retreat from the dangerous place. The two girls were suddenly confronted by a terrifying beast with glowing eyes and sharp fangs, causing them to scream and panic as it charged forward. The comical character exclaimed about the need for immediate escape, while the sorceress stumbled, and behind her back appeared a divine form with shining wings. Anna confidently declared her intention to buy time for the others to escape, while the other, raising her thumb, carelessly assured of a successful outcome and explained her urgent goal: to warn the teachers. The mentor sharply ordered Anna to stop, expressing his incomprehension of her disobedience, despite knowing the danger, and ordered her to leave immediately. Cess Ravel warned Anna of the mortal threat from the monster, and she tightly gripped the hilt of the blade, preparing to strike. The female knight declared her intention to delay the enemy in order to save the others, and then rushed into battle, narrowly avoiding a furious attack as an explosion erupted nearby. She remembered how, when she entered the academy, she had tried to get stronger so that she wouldn't feel ashamed being around him while small debris swirled around her. The girl with long hair knelt, clutching her injured arm, surrounded by smoke and debris, demonstrating the will to act despite her injuries. She remembered the firm promise to meet at the Elite Academy in 3 years, and then quietly exhaled, hearing the growl of a monster nearby. With tears and bruises on her face, she confessed that she was going to break her promise, asking River for forgiveness. He confidently supported Anna, who looked at him with surprise and slight embarrassment, while he, holding the sword at his hip, extended his hand.
Cess Revel, drawing his blade, stood before the monster, noting that he needed to deal with it first. The woman noted their imminent meeting with a trembling voice, while the man tightly gripped the hilt of his sword, and between them the flaming beast growled ominously. He solemnly promised Anna to protect her from death, clutching the blade tightly and filling his eyes with determination.
The silver-haired mage cautiously greeted the divine being, who laughed and noted his unexpected restraint, while the mage realized that before him was the very god he had seen in his dream. The divine being calmly noted that his instincts confirmed the authenticity of the god standing before him.
Cess Revel listened with surprise and attention to the voice that announced the presence of important news.
He hastily warned the young man of a mortal threat to his close friend Anna, causing him to react with shock and alarm. The mage asked the god about the sudden appearance of a high-ranking monster in the forest of the elite academy, to which the deity admitted that the situation had gone beyond their calculations, but promised to get to the point.
The man with long hair offered to teleport River to the monster so that he could defeat it, and, in response to a question, explained that he had a special interest in it. The surprised young man nervously asked if anyone was showing interest in him, and the woman calmly explained that she loved the inhabitants of this world, but was obliged to maintain balance by addressing him by name. The female knight told River it was time to go, warning him that the monster was unlike any they had encountered before and wishing him to do his best next time.
The swordsman tried in vain to break through the enemy's defense, after which he decided to resort to magic, which surprised the silver-haired mage who was nearby.
Cess River insistently ordered Anna to run,
explaining that he could not fight and protect her at the same time.
The small winged creature suddenly grabbed the woman, declaring its intention to carry her away, and the stunned man asked why Q had come here, to which he nervously replied that he did not know.
The poisoned character noted that the poison slows movement and causes pain, but by concentrating magic, it is possible to temporarily restrain its spread.
The young swordsman, surrounded by swirling energy, firmly declared that he would continue the fight no matter what.
She fell hard onto the stone floor, and the small creature panicked and asked her to stop, fearing River's reaction, then apologized and asked about her condition, to which she replied that everything was fine, despite the pain.
The fox-masked character asked if she understood him, and then noted their strange but already close connection that had arisen despite their recent acquaintance, while the girl looked puzzled and slightly embarrassed. She watched in bewilderment as the shadowy figure recalled the meeting of years ago, and the desperate voice insisted that she could not leave, because River needed to be saved. The girl questioned the wisdom of leaving him alone with danger, challenging the thought that they were simply cowards who only knew how to run away, while the small creature nearby reacted in surprise.
The comical character had difficulty obeying the order, refusing to run, and urged Anna to use the power of the Dragon Knight.
She admitted that there was no other way out since she had been given this talent, and then she clenched her fist resolutely, preparing for action.
The comical character hastily ordered to fight next to River, and the swordsman, dodging the enemy's blow, concentrated on preserving magical energy, avoiding its depletion.
He noticed the numbness in his hand from the poison, feeling the flow of magic reverberate in that area. Cess Revel recalled Lloyd's instructions to activate the unbreakable blade as the fierce battle unfolded nearby and his comrade jumped to attack the monster.
He thought about the wavering magic and the poison slowly spreading through his body, fearing paralysis and death, while memories of his comrades flashed before his eyes.
Cess Revel leapt towards the demon,
wondering if he should try to create a false numbness with the demonizer, doubting his own ability to do so.
He fought furiously, screaming in despair as the merciless monster attacked him just as he was beginning to comprehend his instincts.
The enemy unleashed a powerful blow with his massive sword, while the comical character, clutching a smaller blade in his hands, nervously considered how to activate the unbreakable blade without giving it away.
The character shouted out the name of the move, Dragon Breath,
and the ferocious dragon-like creature unleashed a powerful attack.
He reacted with surprise to the sudden call of Q, and someone off-camera noted that this was a clever way to buy time. The comical character realized that his magical energy was resonating with Q's power,
expressing surprise, while an urgent call of Rivera's name was heard nearby.
The voice warned that failure would result in paralysis from the poison and becoming easy prey for the monster, while it remained unknown whether the unbreakable blade would be able to activate despite attempts to delay time. The girl, giving River a bright smile,
assured him of her strength and importance, while he looked at her with a concentrated gaze.
After defeating the manticore, he stood with his sword drawn, noticing an unexpected burning sensation in his hand. The woman in light armor called out to River, who, with his gaze downcast and covered in mucus, was thinking about returning to where he had been transported from.
He was breathing heavily, still feeling like he was in the middle of a fight, and the narration explained that Lloyd had helped him rest for a few days and that almost all of the prizes from the rookie tournament had gone towards removing the poison.
Anna was walking down the market street, and the narrator mentioned that she had gained fame for the risk she had taken to fight the manticore to save her friends. And now she was to carry that title. The cheerful young woman introduced herself as the new receptionist for the Tempest Guild, and the man above greeted her and mentioned the letter he had sent her. The panorama revealed a huge city with a fortress on a rocky hill, and a sealed letter addressed from the chairman of the Guild Federation appeared in the frame. A woman dressed as a maid greeted the arrivals warmly and gestured for them to enter the building.
The female knight asked him in surprise who he was, while the opponent confidently approached, admiring her outstanding magic and physical strength despite her young age.
A man with long hair and a face covered in scars approached Lewis, the head of the Guild Federation, expressing his anticipation of meeting the young man who possessed the talent, determination. In a spacious, elegantly decorated room, two people sat at a table, discussing the amazing taste of fermented wild boar meat. The young man asked what the term fermented meant, and the blonde explained that keeping the meat at 30 degrees Celsius for 10 to 20 days promotes the development of fungi, which gives it a soft and rich taste while assuring that all unnecessary things had been removed. Cess Ravel gravely explained the importance of bacteria control to the success of the process, while the comic character devoured the food with gusto, emphasizing the value of aging meat in harsh conditions. A close-up shot shows a determined look, followed by a question about the purpose of the visit, followed by the suggestion that the meeting is clearly not for a meal. The man sitting at the table granted the young man the right to enter the elite academy, while mysterious glowing spheres hovered around him in the hall.
The mentor confidently stated that defeating the absolute swordmaster and the sage was more than enough for enrollment. He revealed to the stunned girl that the poison infecting her was identical to that which came from the monster Anna had defeated, and acknowledged her victory over the manticore. He reflected on his goal of getting into an elite academy, noting her high level of professionalism and understanding why Anna had hidden the details of the teleportation incident. Screvel, amazed and grateful, expressed his gratitude to the mentor, who, remaining calm, warned about the existence of the condition, while the young man could hardly believe in such a rapid development of events.
The man with long hair confidently promised admission to an elite academy on the condition that the candidate reached the S rank among adventurers. The young man insisted on his complete readiness, and his interlocutor calmly confirmed his words from afar.
She firmly explained that in order to advance up the adventurer ladder, one must train hard and mature, because at high ranks, even a small mistake could cost one's life.
The silver-haired mage explained that reaching S rank took many years and depended on the frequency and number of requests completed, while the other wondered if this would disprove the academy's conservatives. The woman demanded to be admitted to the elite academy, and her two companions cheerfully thanked Lewis for the treat and discussed their intention to take on as many missions as possible. An empty plate with a knife and fork remained on the table, and next to it were words of gratitude and a polite farewell.
The comical character walked cheerfully across the stone bridge, whistling, and the potential mentor noted with a grin how one should behave at such an age. The narrative mentioned that in addition to training, they carried out many tasks.
Cess Ravel lay exhausted on the rocky ground, realizing that he had reached his limit and had to work harder to master new skills. The young character looked at his palms in amazement as ghostly creatures hovered around him, and the explanatory text revealed the essence of the skill, Item Box, which allows you to store things outside the influence of physical laws and time.
Cess Rao watched the item box with envy and shock, while another girl explained that having this skill saved energy and protected fragile items on long journeys.
The shocked woman demanded an explanation from River as to how he had acquired the high-level trading skill and questioned his right to use it.
Cess' two characters praised Rao with enthusiasm, attributing his success to his persistence and admiring the fact that he actually did it.
They spent the next few days talking and practicing sleep learning under a large tree, using magic to recuperate while they rested, with 1 hour equaling 8 hours of sleep.
The caster explained that the sprint technique created a magical shell around the foot, allowing for a dash that was invisible to the eye, and at that moment the figure quickly broke through the wall. The comical character, with a wide smile and glowing eyes, approached Eleanor with a request to issue new tasks. The girl awkwardly explained that there were no more orders, but the young man insisted, claiming that there were still many requests on the board and was outraged by the idea of taking them all. Cess Revel hesitated after hearing that he was suitable for the mission to be promoted to A rank, but that it would take a month to process, while others warned him against trying to complete all the missions alone. The girl with big eyes enthusiastically approached Eleanor for new assignments, assuring her that she worked tirelessly, and Eleanor calmly assured her that at this rate she would soon be able to get promoted to rank A. She handed him a scroll, saying that it contained a rank-up quest, and he looked at it carefully, placing his hands on the table. The girl explained with a nervous smile that she had applied for a promotion as soon as she found out that River met the requirements, and he was surprised, believing that it would take longer. They discussed the difficult mission to gain promotion to rank A,